The injured horse had already been abandoned by everyone. No one believed it would survive. When the Apache woman approached in silence and said she could heal it, the cowboy laughed until he heard the condition she imposed. The smile vanished, his hands began to tremble, and everyone around fell into absolute silence. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and comment from which part of the world you're watching, because now I'm going to tell you everything. The afternoon sun burned down on the dry earth of the Lazy H Corral. Bill Henderson stood very still, his rough hand resting on the fence. Inside, his horse Duke stood with his head low. The horse's front leg was swollen to twice its normal size. "He's not getting better, Bill." Bill didn't turn to look at young Jimmy, who had spoken. He already knew. He had known since Doc Miller left an hour ago. "What did the doc say?" Jimmy asked, his voice quiet. Bill took a long time to answer. He said a lot of words. The main ones were bone infection and fever. He said there is nothing more to be done. Jimmy took off his hat and pushed a hand through his red hair. "Nothing?" "Nothing." Bill's voice was flat. "The medicine is not working. The pain is too much." He said the kindest thing is to let him go, to end his suffering. A fly buzzed around Duke's leg. The horse didn't even twitch. "Oh," Jimmy said. He put his hat back on. "I'm real sorry, boss." Bill just nodded. He unlatched the gate and walked into the corral. The dust puffed up around his boots. Duke lifted his head a little and made a soft, wet sound. "I know, boy," Bill whispered. He placed his palm on Duke's hot neck. "I know." He stood there for a long while. He remembered the day he bought Duke, a spirited 2-year-old. He remembered teaching his son David to ride on Duke's gentle back. He remembered long, quiet rides after his wife Mary passed away, when the only comfort was the sound of Duke's breathing and the feel of the miles passing beneath them. Now David was gone, living in a big city far away. Mary was long gone, and Duke, his last true friend, was standing here in terrible pain. Jimmy's voice came from the fence. "You want me to call Doc Miller back? To do it?" Bill closed his eyes. "No, not today. I'll do it tomorrow morning. I need a little more time with him." "Okay, boss." Jimmy's boots scraped the dirt as he walked away, leaving Bill alone. Bill leaned his forehead against Duke's shoulder. The horse smelled of sweat and sick animal. "It's just you and me, Duke. Just you and me in this dirt. That's how it's always been." He spent the next hours in the stall. He brought Duke fresh water, though the horse only took a few sips. He brushed his coat slowly, talking in a low, steady voice about old times, about good grass and cold river water. Duke would sometimes nudge Bill's arm with his nose. As the sun began to drop, painting the sky in colors of orange and purple, Bill made a decision. He would not make Duke suffer through another night. He walked to the old tack room where he kept his rifle. He took the gun down from its rack. It felt heavy in his hands. He walked back toward the stall, his steps slow. His heart felt like a stone in his chest. He stopped outside the stall door. Duke was lying down in the straw, which was a bad sign. The horse's eyes were half closed. Bill took a deep, shaky breath. He raised the rifle. He looked at his friend. His hand trembled. He could not do it. A sob broke from his throat, a harsh, dry sound. He lowered the gun, his whole body slumping. He slid down to sit in the dirt outside the stall, the rifle across his lap. He put his face in his hands. The loneliness he had held back for 20 years crashed over him like a cold wave. He was a 60-year-old man, alone on a big ranch, about to lose the last living thing that loved him. He did not know how long he sat there. The sky turned deep blue, then black. A million stars came out over Arizona, but Bill did not see them. All he saw was the dark shape of his horse struggling to breathe. A sound made him look up. It was not a ranch sound. It was the soft click of the main gate. He saw a figure walking up the long driveway toward the house. Who would be coming here at this hour? Bill stood up, his old knee protesting. He squinted into the darkness. The figure came closer, into the dim light from the barn. It was a woman. She had long, dark hair and braids. She wore simple pants and a shirt. She stopped a few feet from him. Her eyes went past him, into the stall where Duke lay. "Your horse is very sick," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. Bill felt a rush of anger. "Who are you? What are you doing on my land?" "My name is Tallulah Blackwater," she said. She looked back at Bill. "I can heal your horse." Bill's laugh was a short, bitter sound in the dark. You can heal him. Sure. And I'm the king of England. The vet, a real doctor, said there's no hope. Now get off my ranch. The woman, Tallulah, did not move. The vet sees the body. I see the body and the spirit. The spirit is still fighting, but it needs help. I said, get out. Bill's voice was loud now, rough with anger and grief. He took a step forward, but Tallulah held her ground. From the stall, Duke let out a low, pained whimper. The sound cut through Bill's anger like a knife. He turned his head to look at his horse. When he looked back at Tallulah, some of the fight had left his eyes. Why? Why would you even say that? What do you want? I want to make a deal, Tallulah said. Money, of course. Bill nodded, his mouth a hard line. I don't have much, but name your price. It is not money. Bill stared at her. Then what? Tallulah looked past him, toward the north, where the land rose into rocky hills. I want the deed to the northern 40 acres of your ranch, the part you call the high strip. If I heal your horse, you will sign that land over to me. For a moment, there was only silence. Then Bill's face turned a deep red. My land? You want a piece of my land? Yes. That is the craziest thing I have ever heard, Bill shouted. That land has been in my family for 3 generations. You think I would just hand it over because you waved some weeds at my horse? It is not just weeds, it is medicine. And my offer is real. Your horse will die tomorrow, or maybe the next day. You know this. I am telling you I can stop that. My price is the high strip. It's a worthless piece of rock and scrub, Bill argued, throwing his hands up. Nothing grows up there good. The cattle don't even like to go up that far. What could you possibly want with it? That is my business, Tallulah said, her voice even. Do we have a deal? Yes or no? My feet are tired and your horse's time is short. No! The answer is no, Bill bellowed. Now get going before I call the sheriff. Tallulah simply nodded. She turned and began to walk back down the driveway the way she came. Her steps were slow and steady in the dirt. Bill watched her go, his chest heaving. His mind was a storm of anger and pain. The nerve of that woman, asking for his land, his family's land, as if it were a bag of apples up for trade. Another whimper came from the stall, weaker this time. Bill rushed back inside. Duke was trying to stand but couldn't. The horse's legs trembled, and he collapsed back into the straw with a heavy thud. His breathing was fast and shallow. Oh, Duke, Bill whispered, kneeling beside him. He stroked the horse's neck. The heat from the fever was intense. He saw the look in Duke's large, dark eye. It was not just pain. It was a plea for the pain to end. Bill remembered the feel of the rifle in his hands. He remembered he could not pull the trigger. He thought about the long night ahead, listening to Duke suffer. He thought about the empty morning that would come after. He jumped to his feet and ran out of the barn. The woman was almost to the main gate, a shadow in the starlight. Wait, he yelled, his voice cracking. She stopped. She turned to face him, waiting. Bill walked toward her, each step feeling like a betrayal of his grandfather, his father, himself. He stopped a few feet from her. The words stuck in his throat. If I say yes, he began, forcing the words out, you have to save him. You have to make him walk again. You have to make him eat. You have to make him well, not just a little better. Well, I understand the terms, Tallulah said. And if you fail? If he dies anyway? Then you keep your land, and I will be gone. You lose nothing but a few days of my presence. Bill looked back at the dark barn. He could feel the silence of his big, empty house behind him. He thought of all the years ahead with no clip-clop of hooves, no soft nicker greeting him at dawn, just silence. He felt sick. He felt desperate. Okay, he said, the word almost a whisper. Okay? Tallulah asked. Yes, okay, Bill shouted, the anger flooding back. You heal my horse, and you can have the damned high strip. Now get in there and do something. Tallulah walked back past him without another word. She went straight to the stall where Duke lay. She did not look at Bill. She knelt in the straw beside the horse. She placed her hand, not on the swollen leg, but gently on Duke's side, over his heart. She closed her eyes and was very still for a long moment. Bill watched from the doorway, his arms crossed tight over his chest. What had he just done? He had promised away a piece of the lazy H. He felt like he might be sick. Tallulah opened her eyes. She looked up at Bill. I will need to gather plants before the sun is fully up. I will need hot water and clean cloths. I will need you to not question what I do. Can you do that? Bill just nodded, a sharp, short movement. Good, she said. We start now. The first light of morning was just a gray smudge in the east when Bill heard a sound outside. He had spent the night in the old armchair in the tack room, dozing fitfully. He stood up, his body stiff, and walked to the barn door. Tallulah was coming across the yard. Her arms were full of plants, some with green leaves, some with dry, twisted roots, some with small yellow flowers. She had a bundle of them wrapped in a piece of cloth. You were out there already? Bill asked, his voice rough with sleep. The plants are best gathered at this hour, she said simply, walking past him into the barn. She went straight to Duke's stall. Bill followed. Duke was lying in the same spot. His breathing seemed a tiny bit easier, but he still looked terrible. Tallulah put her plants down on a clean sack. She had already brought a pot of hot water from the house. Bill hadn't even heard her. What is all that stuff? He asked, pointing at the plants. Medicine, she said. She did not look at him. She began to tear leaves and crush roots with a smooth stone, mixing them in a bowl with some of the hot water. The air filled with a strong green smell. Doc Miller gave him medicine, pills. They didn't work. This is different, Tallulah said. She added a pinch of brown powder from a small pouch at her belt. The mixture in the bowl became a thick, dark paste. This draws out the heat and the poison. It soothes the hurt from the inside. Bill watched, his arms crossed. It looked like mud. He felt a heavy doubt in his stomach. He had traded a piece of his ranch for mud and weeds. Tallulah finished making the paste. She turned to Duke. Her voice became very soft. She spoke words Bill did not understand. They were not English. They were gentle sounds, like a low song. She smoothed the warm poultice onto Duke's swollen leg with her bare hands. Duke flinched at the first touch, then let out a long sigh. His body seemed to relax into the straw. He likes the warmth, Tallulah said. She took long strips of clean cloth and wrapped the leg tightly, holding the poultice in place. He needs to feel cared for. The spirit needs to know the fight is not his alone. Bill said nothing. He just watched. When she was done, Tallulah sat back on her heels. Now we wait. I will change this 2 times today. You need to get him to drink, just a little at a time. Later that morning, Jimmy came into the barn. He stopped short when he saw Tallulah sitting quietly in the stall with Duke. He saw the strange bandage on the horse's leg. Boss, Jimmy said, looking at Bill, who was leaning against the wall. She's treating him, Bill said, his voice flat. Jimmy's eyes were wide. With what? Plants. Jimmy opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked from the bandaged leg to Tallulah's calm face. Does it hurt him? It seems to ease him, Bill admitted, though the words felt strange. Tallulah stood up. I need more of one plant. It grows near the West Wash. She walked out of the barn, leaving the 2 men alone with Duke. Jimmy moved closer to Bill. The other guys are talking, boss. They saw her coming in at dawn. They think it's not right. What do they think is not right? Bill asked, though he knew. They think she's playing some kind of trick, that she's just making it up so you'll give her the land. They say no plant can fix what the doc can't. Bill looked at Duke. The horse's eye was closed. He was resting. She's not taking the land unless he gets better. That was the deal. But what if she does something to make him seem better, just for a little while? Jimmy's young face was full of worry. We don't know her. She's from the reservation. She does things different. A hot spark of anger flared in Bill's chest. I know the terms, Jimmy. I'm not a fool. I didn't mean that, boss. I just go check on the south fence, Bill said, cutting him off. Let me worry about my horse and my land. Jimmy nodded, looking at the ground. He adjusted his hat and left. Bill stayed. He watched Duke sleep. Around the middle of the day, Tallulah returned and changed the poultice. The swelling had not gone down, but the leg did not look quite as angry and red. When she brought a bucket of water, Duke lifted his head and took a few long drinks. It was the most water he had taken in 2 days. A small, fragile feeling rose in Bill's chest. He pushed it down. It was just a coincidence. It didn't mean anything. That evening, after Tallulah had put on a 3rd fresh poultice, she placed a handful of fresh green leaves in Duke's feed bucket. She crumbled them over the oats. "What are those?" Bill asked. "They will help his hunger return," she said. Duke sniffed the bucket. He ignored the oats but carefully picked out a few of the green leaves with his lips and ate them. "He ate something," Bill said, almost to himself. "Yes," Tallulah said. She gathered her things. "I will be back at first light." After she was gone, Bill sat in the stall for a long time. The barn was quiet. He heard the soft sound of Duke chewing, then the horse nudged the bucket, looking for more leaves. It was a tiny thing, a very tiny thing. But in the deep silence of the barn, it felt very loud. It felt like a crack in the wall of hopelessness that had surrounded him. He felt a terrible, dangerous thing. He felt hope. Jimmy O'Connor pulled his hat down low over his eyes. He leaned on the corral fence, watching the main house. The sun was barely up, just a sliver of orange in the sky. He had been there since before 5 in the morning, waiting. Mike, one of the older ranch hands, walked over with 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Jimmy. "Still watching?" "Someone's got to," Jimmy said, taking the cup. The coffee was bitter and hot. Mike spat on the ground. "It's been 4 days. That horse is moving around, eating. It don't make no sense." "Duke's a tough horse," Jimmy said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Tough, sure, but not magic. It's that woman. She's up to something. Why else would she want that useless strip of rock?" Mike took a loud sip. "She's clouding the old man's mind. Bill's so desperate to have his horse back, he ain't thinking straight." Jimmy didn't answer. He had seen the change in Duke too. The swelling in the leg was almost gone. The horse was standing on his own, even taking a few steps. Bill's grim face had softened, just a little, but Mike's words stuck in his head. Asterisk. Why would she want that useless strip of rock? Just then, the back door of the main house opened. Tallulah stepped out. She carried her cloth bag for plants. She walked past the barn without looking inside and headed north toward the foothills, toward the high strip. "See?" Mike nudged Jimmy. "Every single morning. Goes up there. What for? There ain't nothing up there but snakes and dust." Jimmy made a decision. He handed his coffee cup back to Mike. "Cover for me. Tell Bill I'm checking the line in the east pasture if he asks." Mike's eyes gleamed. "Going for a little look-see?" "Just curious," Jimmy said, already moving away from the fence. He kept far behind Tallulah, using the scrub brush and dry washes for cover. The ground began to slope upward, getting rockier. The air was still cool. Jimmy's heart beat fast in his chest. He felt a mix of excitement and guilt. Bill was like a father to him, and here he was, spying on the person helping Bill. But he had to know. Tallulah moved with purpose. She didn't look around. She followed a path only she seemed to see, winding between large boulders. After about 30 minutes, she came to a place where 2 big walls of rock came together, forming a narrow opening. It was hidden by a twisted juniper tree. If you didn't know it was there, you would walk right past it. She ducked under the tree and disappeared into the crack. Jimmy waited. He counted to 100. Then he counted to 100 again. The canyon was silent. He crept forward to the juniper tree and peered into the opening. It was a tight squeeze. He slipped through. Inside, the world changed. The narrow canyon opened into a small, round valley. The air was cooler here. It smelled of damp earth and sage, and there was a sound, a soft, gentle trickle of water. But that wasn't what made Jimmy's mouth fall open. On the smooth, high walls of the canyon, there were pictures, dozens of them. They were carved right into the stone. There were shapes of spirals, and animals like deer and birds, and people with their arms raised. The carvings were old, the edges worn smooth by wind and time. In the center of the little valley was a pool of water, clear and blue, fed by a small spring that seeped from the rocks. Green plants grew thick around its edges, a shocking splash of color in the dry land. Tallulah was kneeling by the water. She had her hand in it. Her eyes were closed. She was perfectly still. Jimmy pulled his head back behind the rock. His mind was racing. A spring, water, in the middle of the driest part of the ranch. And those old pictures, he knew what they were. He had heard stories. These were Apache pictures, petroglyphs. This wasn't a worthless strip of rock. This was a special place, a sacred place. He heard a soft rustle. He peeked again. Tallulah was standing. She was looking right at the spot where he was hidden. Jimmy froze, holding his breath, but she didn't call out. She just picked up her empty bag. She walked to the edge of the spring and carefully picked a few leaves from a plant with silver-green foliage. She placed them in her bag. Then she turned and walked back toward the narrow entrance. Jimmy scrambled back, pressing himself flat against the hot rock outside the canyon. He heard her footsteps pass by, then fade away down the path. When he was sure she was gone, he went back into the hidden canyon. He stood in the quiet space, staring at the water and the pictures on the walls. The peace of the place settled over him. He understood now. This was why she wanted the land. It wasn't about money or tricking Bill. He reached out and touched one of the carved spirals. The stone was warm from the sun. "Whoa," he whispered to the empty air. "It's real, all of it." He knew he had to tell Bill, but as he looked at the peaceful spring, a cold knot of worry formed in his stomach. Telling Bill would change everything. Jimmy found Bill in the barn. Duke was standing in his stall, chewing on some hay. Bill was brushing the horse's neck, a look of quiet relief on his face. That look made what Jimmy had to say even harder. "Boss, can I talk to you?" "Sure, Jimmy. What's on your mind?" Bill didn't stop brushing. "It's about Tallulah and the high strip." Bill's hand slowed. He looked over at Jimmy. "What about it?" Jimmy took a deep breath. He adjusted his hat. "I followed her this morning, like you told me not to. I'm sorry." Bill put the brush down. His face was serious now. "Go on." "She went up to the high strip. There's a hidden canyon there, boss. You'd never see it if you didn't know it was there." Jimmy's words came out in a rush. "Inside there's a spring. Fresh water, clear as anything. And there's pictures. Old pictures carved right into the rock walls. Animals and spirals and people. Apache pictures, I think. It's a real special place. That's why she wants the land." Bill stared at him. For a long moment, he didn't speak. The relief drained from his face, replaced by something hard and cold. "A spring," he said, his voice low. "Yes, sir." "And carvings." "Yes, sir." And she knew it was there all along. It wasn't a question. "It looked like she did," Jimmy said, his voice small. Bill turned away. He picked up the brush and put it back on the shelf with a sharp click. He walked out of the barn without another word. Jimmy watched him go, his stomach sinking. Bill did not go to the house. He went to the small cabin where Tallulah was staying while she treated Duke. The door was open to let in the morning air. She was inside, grinding dried leaves in a stone bowl. Bill filled the doorway, blocking the light. "We need to talk, now." Tallulah looked up. She saw his face. She set the bowl down slowly. "What is wrong?" "You played me," Bill said. His voice trembled with anger. "You knew exactly what was up on that land. A spring, water. In this desert, that's worth more than gold. You saw my horse was sick and you saw your chance. You used him as a pawn to get what you wanted." Tallulah stood up. She wiped her hands on her pants. "I did not lie to you. I said I would heal your horse if you gave me the land. I am healing your horse." "But you didn't say why you wanted it," Bill shouted, taking a step into the room. "You let me think it was worthless. You made me feel like I was getting the better end of a crazy deal, all while you knew there was a treasure sitting up there." "It is not a treasure," Tallulah said. Her voice was still calm, but there was a new sharpness in it. "Water is always a treasure. Don't you tell me different." "It is not a treasure to be sold." Tallulah's words cut through the air. "It is not gold. It is sacred. It is my family's heart. And it was stolen." The word hung between them. Asterisk stolen. Asterisk Bill's anger stumbled. "What are you talking about?" Tallulah looked at him, her dark eyes steady. "The high strip, it belonged to my great-grandmother. Her name was White Stone Woman. She lived there, by that spring. Your grandfather, Samuel Henderson, wanted the land. People thought there was silver. There was no silver, but he wanted it. He brought papers she could not read. He had men with guns stand behind him when she spoke. He used the law like a weapon to take it from her. He stole it." Bill shook his head. "No, that's not true. My grandfather built this ranch with hard work. He was a good man." "He was a thief," Tallulah said, and there was no hate in her voice, just a heavy certainty. "He stole our sacred place. He broke my family's connection to it. For generations we have known the story. We have looked for that canyon. My grandmother told me the stories before she died. She said I would find it, and I did. Bill felt the world tilt under his feet. He thought of his grandfather's portrait in the house. The stern, kind-eyed man he'd been told built their legacy with honor. You have no proof. I have the truth that has been passed in my family for 100 years, Tallulah said. Why do you think I want that specific piece of land, Bill Henderson? Not the good grazing land, not the land by the river, the dry, rocky strip, because it was never yours to give. I am not buying it from you. I am asking you to give back what was stolen. Bill could not speak. The anger was gone, replaced by a sick, hollow feeling. He looked at Tallulah, really looked at her. He did not see a trickster. He saw a woman standing firm for something old and deep. You should have told me, he finally whispered. Would you have believed me? Tallulah asked. Or would you have called me a liar and sent me away and let your horse die? Bill had no answer. He turned and walked out of the cabin into the blinding sun. He walked without knowing where he was going. The words echoed in his head. Asterisk. He was a thief. Stolen. Give back what was stolen. He found himself back at Duke's stall. The horse nudged his shoulder, looking for a treat. Bill patted his neck, his hand moving automatically. He looked into Duke's trusting eyes, the eyes that were clear and healthy because of Tallulah. Everything was tangled up. The love for his horse, the love for his land, the memory of his grandfather, the truth in a stranger's eyes. For the first time in his 60 years, Bill Henderson felt the ground of his whole life crack open beneath him. Bill did not go back to the barn. He walked straight to the big, quiet house. His boots were loud on the wooden floor. The silence in the rooms felt heavy. He went to the room that used to be his office. On the wall was a picture of his grandfather, Samuel Henderson. The man in the picture had a strong jaw and clear eyes. He looked honest. Bill had always been told he was honest. Tallulah's words echoed. Asterisk. He brought papers she could not read. He had men with guns. No, Bill said to the empty room. It can't be true. But a seed of doubt had been planted. It was growing fast and ugly. He needed to know. He had men with guns. No, Bill said to the empty room. It can't be true. But a seed of doubt had been planted. It was growing fast and ugly. He needed to know. He had to see for himself. He climbed the narrow stairs to the attic. The air was hot and still, full of dust. It smelled of old wood and memories. There were boxes everywhere. Boxes of his son David's old school papers. Boxes of his wife Mary's clothes, which he could never bring himself to give away. And in the far corner, under a yellowed sheet, were the oldest boxes, the ones from his father and his grandfather. He pulled the sheet off. Dust filled the air, making him cough. He opened the first box. It was full of old account books, lists of cattle bought and sold 50 years ago. He opened a second box. It held rusted tools and some broken harnesses. The third box was heavier. He dragged it into the thin light from the attic window. He lifted the lid. Inside were bundles of papers tied with faded ribbon. His hands were not steady. He untied the first bundle. They were letters. Some were from his grandfather to his grandmother when they were first married. The writing was fancy and hard to read. He set them aside. He untied a second bundle. These looked official. Land surveys, maps of the ranch boundaries drawn in careful ink. Not handwritten. At the top it said, Deed of Sale. Bill's breath caught. He read the names. Seller, Whitestone Woman, a.k.a. Mary Cloud, of the Apache Nation. Buyer, Samuel J. Henderson of Silver Creek, Arizona Territory. The price listed was $100 and other valuable considerations. $100 for 40 acres with a permanent spring. Even back then, it was a joke of a price. Bill knew that. Paper-clipped behind the deed was another sheet, a letter. The paper was brittle. It was from a man named Arthur Higgins, addressed to his grandfather, Samuel. Bill read it slowly. Asterisk Sam. Enclosed is the finalized deed. As we discussed, the witness, my clerk, has attested that the Indian woman, Mary Cloud, signed of her own free will. She made her mark. She was, as you said, satisfied with the terms. The presence of Marshal Thompson and his men ensured there was no unnecessary discussion. The land is now clear and yours. Do not worry about future claims. The law is settled. Yours, Arthur Asterisk. Bill read the letter twice, then a third time. The words seemed to blur on the page. Attested that the Indian woman signed of her own free will. The presence of Marshal Thompson and his men ensured there was no unnecessary discussion. Tallulah's story was not a story. It was right here in his hands. His grandfather had not traded fairly. He had used a lawyer, a false witness, and the threat of men with guns to take the land from a woman who could not read the papers she was signing. The $100 was not a payment. It was a cover for a theft. A sound escaped Bill's throat, a groan of pure pain. He dropped the papers as if they were on fire. He leaned back against a dusty trunk, his legs unable to hold him. He saw his grandfather not as the hero in the portrait downstairs, but as a man in a hot office, staring down an Apache woman while armed men stood behind him. He saw Tallulah's great-grandmother, confused and frightened, putting a mark on a paper she did not understand. All these years, Bill had loved this land. He had fought for it, worked for it, nearly gone broke keeping it together. He believed it was his legacy, a legacy built on sweat and honor. But it was not all sweat, and it was not all honor. Part of it was built on a lie, a mean, greedy lie. Downstairs he heard the screen door slam. Jimmy's voice called out, "Boss, you in here?" Bill did not answer. He looked at the deed and the letter lying on the attic floor. They were just paper. But they felt like stones, crushing the memory of the man he had admired his whole life. He had a choice now, a terrible choice. He could ignore these papers. He could put them back in the box and never speak of them. He could keep the land. Duke was almost well. He could tell Tallulah the deal was off. The land was his, fair and square. He could live in the house his grandfather built, on the ranch his grandfather started, and try to forget what he now knew. Or he could take these papers downstairs. He could show them to Tallulah. He could admit that her family's story was true. He could sign the high strip over to her. He would be giving away a piece of the Lazy H. He would be telling the world and himself that his grandfather was a thief. One choice felt like betrayal of his family. The other choice felt like betrayal of the truth. Bill Henderson, a 60-year-old man who valued only simple, tangible things, sat in the dusty attic and realized there was nothing simple about this at all. Bill did not sleep. He sat at his kitchen table all night, the old deed and the letter lying in front of him like a jury. By the time the sun rose, he still had no answer. He made coffee and drank it black, staring out the window at the dry land. The sound of a vehicle coming fast up his driveway broke the silence. It was not a ranch truck. It was a shiny white car that kicked up a huge cloud of dust. It stopped in front of the house. A man got out. He was dressed in neat pants and a polo shirt, not work clothes. He had a wide smile that did not touch his eyes. He walked up to the porch and knocked on the screen door. Bill opened it. "Can I help you?" "Mr. Henderson? Bill Henderson?" the man said, his voice too cheerful for the early hour. "I'm Martin Caldwell. I'm a developer over in Mesa." "What are you developing on my ranch?" Bill asked, his voice flat. Martin Caldwell laughed a short, polite laugh. "Well, I'm not on your ranch yet, sir, but I'd like to be. May I come in?" Bill did not move. "Say what you came to say." Caldwell's smile tightened, but he kept it on his face. "All right, straight talk. I hear you have a piece of land, the northern section, rocky, up in the hills. I hear there's a natural spring up there, and some old Indian carvings on the rocks." Bill felt a chill. "Who did you hear that from?" "Oh, word gets around in small towns, Mr. Henderson. A ranch hand talks in a bar, a waitress overhears. It's a fascinating story, a hidden spring with historical value." Caldwell leaned in a little. "I want to buy that land from you. I'll give you a very good price." "It's not for sale," Bill said. "Everything is for sale at the right price," Caldwell replied smoothly. "Let's not play games. I know that land is just sitting there. You don't farm it, your cattle don't graze it. It's doing nothing for you, but it could do something wonderful for this community. I'm thinking a small, tasteful resort, a spa built around the natural spring, tours to see the ancient artwork. It would bring jobs. It would bring money to Silver Creek." Bill imagined bulldozers in the hidden canyon, pipes in the spring, a gift shop where the petroglyphs were. His stomach turned. "You're not listening. It's not for sale." Caldwell's friendly tone faded. "Mr. Henderson, Bill, I'm trying to do this the friendly way. I have investors. This project will happen. It would be easier for everyone if you just sold the land to me. I can offer you, let's say, $200,000. Today. It was more money than that strip had ever been worth in its life. Bill thought of his debts, the new tractor he needed, the roof that leaked. He thought of his grandfather's theft. For a second, he almost said yes. It would be so easy. Then he thought of Tallulah's face. Asterisk, it is my family's heart. No, Bill said. Now, I have work to do. He started to close the door. Think about it, Caldwell called out, his voice sharp. The offer won't last forever. Bill watched the white car speed back down the driveway. He felt tired. He knew this was not over. Later that afternoon, Tallulah came to the house. Her face was serious. A man came to see me, she said. A man named Caldwell. Bill nodded. He was here too. He offered me money, Tallulah said. A lot of money. He said if the land becomes mine, I should sell it to him. He said I could be rich. My family would never want for anything. What did you tell him? Bill asked. I told him the spring is not for selling. The stones are not for selling. They are for remembering. He did not like that answer. She looked at Bill. He told me you would sell it to him. He said you are a practical man and you would take the money. Bill met her gaze. I told him no. Tallulah studied him for a long moment, as if looking for the truth. She seemed to find it. She gave a single small nod. He will be back, she said. I know. He does not care about the truth of that place. He only cares about what he can take from it. Tallulah's hands were clenched at her sides. He will try to trick us, or he will try to force us. For the first time, Bill heard a flicker of fear in her calm voice. They stood on his porch, two people who did not trust each other, with a problem that would not go away. We can't let him have it, Bill said quietly. No, Tallulah agreed. We cannot. They were not friends. They were not even partners. But in that moment, they were standing on the same side of a line, looking out at the same threat. It was a start. The silence on the porch stretched out. Bill looked at the distant hills where the high strip lay. Tallulah watched the driveway where the developer's car had been. He thinks he can wait us out, Bill finally said, or turn us against each other. He is right that we do not trust each other, Tallulah said. It was a simple fact. Bill nodded. But we both want the same thing right now. We want him gone. So we have to work like we trust each other, even if we don't. What do we do? Tallulah asked. First, we make it clear that land is private. We put up new signs, big ones. No trespassing, private property. All along the fence line and on the road up into the canyon. He looked at her. You know the back ways up there better than I do. Where else could someone try to get in? Tallulah thought for a moment. There is a dry wash on the east side. It is steep, but a man on foot could climb it. There is another path from the north, through the state land. It is longer. We'll put signs there too, and we'll watch it. I'll take the truck in the mornings. You can go on foot in the afternoons. We'll make sure no one is poking around. And if we find someone? Tallulah asked. We tell them to leave. We call the sheriff if we have to. It's still my land until... He trailed off, not finishing the sentence. Until he decided. Until the deal was done. All right, Tallulah said. The next morning, Bill and Jimmy drove posts and nailed up the bright yellow signs. Tallulah walked the perimeter, placing smaller signs on trees and rocks where a vehicle could not go. They did not work together, but their work fit together like pieces of a puzzle. 2 days later, just after lunch, Tallulah came to the barn where Bill was fixing a saddle. There are tire tracks, she said, on the old mining road that cuts close to the East Wash. They are new, from today. Bill put down his tools. Let's go. They drove in Bill's truck as far as the road would allow, then walked. They found the tracks. They followed them on foot until they ended at a clump of brush. A man was there, dressed in hiking clothes. He had a camera around his neck. It was not Caldwell. It was a younger man. This is private land, Bill said, his voice loud in the quiet. The man jumped, turning around. Oh, hello, I was just hiking. I didn't see any signs. They're posted, Bill said, not moving. You need to leave, now. The man's smile was nervous. I'm just a geology student, looking at rock formations. Tallulah spoke, her eyes on the camera. Did Mr. Caldwell hire you to take pictures of the spring? The man's smile vanished. He looked from Tallulah's calm face to Bill's stern one. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You tell Caldwell," Bill said, taking a step forward, "that sending scouts won't work. You tell him the next person we find here we won't talk to. We'll call the law, you understand?" The man nodded quickly. He picked up his backpack and hurried back toward the road without another word. Bill and Tallulah watched him go. "He was lying," Tallulah said. "I know," Bill said. He let out a long breath. He wanted to see the spring for himself, to see if it was worth the trouble. They walked back to the truck slowly. The sun was hot. "You never asked me," Tallulah said after a while. "Asked you what?" "If I knew about the spring when I made the deal. Jimmy told you what he saw. You were angry, but you never asked me directly." Bill was quiet for a few steps. "I guess I was afraid of the answer." "The answer is yes," Tallulah said. "I knew it was there. My grandmother described the place. The two tall rocks like brothers, the sound of water in the silence. I looked for it for 2 years. I found it 1 week before Duke got sick." Bill stopped walking. He looked at her. "So you did use my horse?" "I saw a dying animal and a desperate man," she said, meeting his gaze. "I also saw the only chance I might ever have to get my family's land back. I made a choice. I do not regret healing Duke, but I do not regret using the chance either." It was the most honest thing she had ever said to him. Bill felt the old anger stir, but it was weak now. He understood desperation. He had felt it himself, holding that rifle. "I found the papers," he said. The words came out before he planned them. "In my attic. The deed. A letter from a lawyer to my grandfather. It happened just like you said." Tallulah's breath caught. She looked at the ground, then back at him. "What will you do?" "I don't know yet," Bill said honestly. "But I know I won't let a man like Caldwell buy it and put up a gift shop, that's for sure." A small, almost invisible smile touched Tallulah's lips. It was there and then gone. "That," she said, "is a good place to start." Martin Caldwell did not come back with a scout. He came back with 2 men in a pickup truck and a sheet of paper in his hand. It was mid-morning. Bill was near the main gate, fixing a hinge. Tallulah was walking up from the barn. The white car and the truck stopped just outside the gate. Caldwell got out. His friendly smile was gone. "Henderson, we need to talk." Bill straightened up, a wrench in his hand. "We're done talking. You're on my property." "I'm on the county road," Caldwell corrected him. He held up the paper. "I have a permit here from the County Historical Society. It grants me and my associates the right to survey sites of potential historical interest. Your little canyon qualifies." Tallulah came to stand beside Bill. She said nothing. "That paper doesn't give you the right to trespass on posted land," Bill said, but his voice lacked its usual certainty. Laws and papers could be twisted. He knew that now better than anyone. "It gives me a very strong right," Caldwell said. He nodded to the 2 men in the truck. They got out. They were big men in work boots. "We're just going to take a look, a quick survey. You can even come with us." "No," Bill said. He stepped forward, blocking the gate. "You are not setting foot on the Lazy H." Caldwell's face hardened. "Don't be difficult, old man. This is happening. You can't stop progress. That land is going to be developed. Either you sell it to me or I'll find another way. But it's going to happen." "The land is not yours to develop," Tallulah said, her voice clear. Caldwell looked at her with disgust. "Stay out of this. This is between me and the property owner." "I am the property owner," Bill heard himself say. The words surprised him as much as they surprised Caldwell. "I own it, and I say no. Now get off my driveway." For a moment, Caldwell just stared. Then he smirked. "All right, have it your way." He turned to his 2 men. "Go on. Start walking up the main ranch road. You're conducting a survey. He touches you, it's assault." The 2 men started toward the gate. Bill's heart hammered. He was one old man with a wrench. He could not stop them both. "Jimmy!" Bill yelled toward the barn, not knowing if the young hand was even nearby. But Jimmy was. He came running from the equipment shed. 2 other ranch hands, Mike and Luis, followed him, their faces curious and then alarmed when they saw the scene at the gate. "Boss?" Jimmy asked, breathing hard. "These men are trying to force their way onto the high strip," Bill said, not taking his eyes off the 2 workers. Jimmy looked at the workers. He looked at Caldwell's smug face. He looked at Bill standing alone in front of the gate. He looked at Tallulah standing firm beside him. Jimmy adjusted his hat. He walked forward and stood on the other side of Bill, crossing his arms. He didn't say a word. Mike and Luis hesitated. They glanced at each other. Mike, who had been so suspicious of Tallulah, spat on the ground. He walked over and stood next to Jimmy. Luis followed. Now it was 5 people blocking the gate: Bill, Tallulah, Jimmy, Mike, and Luis. Just then, a familiar clip-clop sound came from the barn. Duke walked out into the sunlight. He was moving smoothly, his legs strong. He walked straight to Bill and stopped beside him, as if he had been called. He stood there, tall and solid. The 2 hired men stopped walking. They looked at the line of people. They looked at the big, healthy horse. They looked back at Caldwell. Caldwell's face was red with anger. "This is ridiculous. You're obstructing a legal survey." "Your survey ends at my property line," Bill said. His voice was steady now. He felt the presence of the others beside him. He felt Duke's warm shoulder against his arm. "This is my land." "Her land," he said, nodding toward Tallulah. "It is not your business. It will never be your business. Now take your men and your paper and get off my ranch." He took a step forward. Jimmy, Mike, and Luis took a step forward with him. Tallulah did not move, but her stance was like a rock. Caldwell looked from their determined faces to his 2 hesitant workers. He knew he had lost this fight. The cost of pushing further was too high. "This isn't over," he snarled. "Yes," Bill said, his eyes cold. "It is. If I see you or anyone you send here again, I won't be standing here talking. I'll be on the phone with the sheriff so fast it'll make your head spin. Now get out." Caldwell glared at them all. He jerked his head at his men. They turned and got back in the truck. The white car and the truck spun around in a cloud of dust and sped away. No one moved until the dust settled and the sound of the engines faded. Bill let out a long, shaky breath. He looked at Jimmy, then at Mike and Luis. "Thank you," he said, the words simple and heartfelt. Mike scuffed his boot in the dirt. Ain't right, what he was doing. This is still Lazy H land, for now anyway. He glanced at Tallulah, then walked back toward the shed with Luis. Jimmy stayed. He looked at Duke, then at Bill. "He's really better, isn't he?" "He is," Bill said, patting Duke's neck. Jimmy nodded. He gave a small, awkward smile to Tallulah, then followed the other hands. Bill and Tallulah were left alone at the gate with Duke. The sun beat down. The confrontation was over, but Bill knew the real decision was still waiting for him inside the house. The papers were still on his table. After today, however, the choice felt different. It felt clearer. He had stood for the land, but what was he really standing for? The lie or the truth? The next morning, Bill called the Silver Creek Town Hall. He asked to schedule a public meeting for that evening. He did not say what it was about. Word spread fast in a small town. As the sun began to set, Bill dressed in his cleanest shirt. He took the old deed and the lawyer's letter from his kitchen table. He folded them and put them in his pocket. The weight of them felt different now. They were not secrets. They were just history. An ugly piece of history he needed to show people. Tallulah was waiting by her cabin. "You are going through with it," she said. It was not a question. "I am," Bill said. "Will you come?" "Yes," she said. "I will be there." They drove to town in silence. The community room at the town hall was full. Ranchers, shop owners, people from the reservation. Jimmy was there with some of the other hands. Mike was there too, his arms crossed. Everyone was curious. Bill walked to the front of the room. Tallulah stood near the door. The room grew quiet. "Thank you for coming," Bill began. His voice was rough. He cleared his throat. "I asked you here because I have something to say. Something about my family. Something about the Lazy H Ranch." He took the papers from his pocket. He unfolded them carefully. "Most of you knew my grandfather, Samuel Henderson. I was always told he was a good man, a hard man who built our ranch from nothing." He looked down at the papers in his hands. "That is only part of the story." He held up the deed. "This is a deed for the northern 40 acres, the high strip. It says my grandfather bought that land from an Apache woman named White Stone Woman for $100. He paused. "That was a lie." A murmur went through the room. Bill held up the letter. "This is from his lawyer. It talks about making a witness say she signed freely. It talks about having men with guns there to make sure there was no unnecessary discussion. Bill's hand trembled slightly. My grandfather did not buy that land. He stole it. He used lies and threats to take it from Tallulah Blackwater's great-grandmother. He looked at Tallulah. She met his gaze, her face solemn. Tallulah came to my ranch to heal my horse, Duke, Bill continued, turning back to the crowd. She saved Duke's life. Her price was the return of that stolen land. I did not want to believe her, but the truth is in these papers. My hero was a thief, and I have been living on and loving land that was never rightfully ours. The room was completely silent now. A man cannot build a good life on a bad foundation, Bill said, his voice growing stronger. It is time to fix what was broken. He took a step toward Tallulah. He held out the deed to her. This land belongs to your family. I am sorry it took so long. I am sorry for the pain my family caused. Please take it back. Tallulah walked forward through the quiet crowd. She stopped in front of Bill. She looked at the old paper in his hand, then into his eyes. She saw the pain and the honesty there. She took the deed. Thank you, Bill Henderson, she said, her voice clear in the silent room. Then she turned to face everyone. This land is sacred to my people. It has a spring and ancient carvings. It is a place of memory. It will not be sold. It will not be a resort. It will be a place of peace. That is my promise. People began to talk softly. Some nodded. Some looked shocked. Bill stood there, feeling empty and light at the same time. Later, back at the ranch under a sky full of stars, Bill walked Tallulah to her cabin. Duke followed them, his steps strong and steady on the dirt. It is done, Tallulah said. It is done, Bill agreed. They stood for a moment in the quiet dark. The spring has good water, Tallulah said. A lot of water, more than one family needs. Bill waited. Your cattle, she said. The Lazy H cattle. They can still drink from it. You can bring them there. We will share the water. That is a new deal, a better deal. Bill felt a tightness in his chest loosen. It was not everything. It would not erase the past, but it was a start. It was a way forward. I would be grateful for that, he said. Thank you. Tallulah gave a small nod. She looked at Duke, standing close to Bill. He is a good horse. He is, Bill said, resting his hand on Duke's neck. We all got a second chance. Tallulah turned to go inside. She stopped at the door. Good night, Bill. Good night, Tallulah. Bill walked back to the big quiet house with Duke beside him. The house was still empty. The land was a little smaller. But for the first time in a very long time, Bill Henderson did not feel alone. He felt at peace. The past was healed. The future was uncertain, but it was honest. And that was enough.